What happens to the food on our plates as the climate continues to change? I'm Chef Chris Cosentino. Feast or Famine is a new short film series I've created that explores that question through my lens as both a chef and a cyclist. 5 short films will each explore a different area of our food system through conversations with farmers, fishermen, ranchers, winemakers, chefs, and scientists. We've all seen the impacts firsthand, along with the uncertainties of extreme weather patterns that affect the soil and the water. The 2 common threads that bring food to the table or leave the table bare. Join me on this journey to figure out what's happening and what we can do to protect the planet and the food we love and need to survive. The Earth's about 75% water, so let's start here. Just 30 miles northwest of San Francisco lies Tomales Bay, and it's actually on top of the San Andreas Fault. But what's so unique about it is that it creates the most beautiful oyster habitat.
We feel lucky to be able to work in a place like this. Ocean acidification is an existential threat to the food systems of the world.
John Finger is the CEO and founder of Hog Island Oyster Company. He is a marine biologist, board member of the Pacific Shellfish Growers Association, restaurant owner, avid surfer, and mountain biker.
What a lot of people don't realize about climate change is it's not just about temperature, it's about ocean chemistry. While the climate might be changing regardless of what we do, we might be headed into a less stable climate period, because that has happened in the Earth's history. We are changing ocean chemistry. Why on earth would we want to embark on a huge chemistry experiment at the same time? Because we don't know what all the consequences are going to be. It's not just about oysters. There's a lot of things lower on the food chain that need calcium carbonate to form shells. Calcium carbonate gets harder to pull out of the water when the water is more acidic. It's an oversimplification of it, but we're seeing it. This isn't theoretical. This is actually, we're seeing this.
I want you to explain to people what will happen if this goes away.
Shellfish, whether it's clams, mussels, oysters, are sort of the foundation of a well-functioning estuary. We talk about oysters being ecosystem engineers in a way. Their filtration ability, what they're doing is they're taking particulate matter out of the water and either turning it into protein or excreting it to the bottom. And that's fertilizer for eelgrass and other things that are important. And when they clear that water, that sunlight can penetrate more. In addition, the oysters themselves are habitat. So many fish and invertebrates and crabs and shrimp spend part of their early life stages in bays like this. So again, all that goes away. What's the effect of that?
And it just continues to roll.
Cascades, yeah. There's about 550 acres under cultivation in this bay. There used to be twice that. Most of that was at the south end of the bay, which cooks in the summertime now, and you wouldn't be able to grow oysters down there without killing. So in so many ways, oysters are like canaries in the coal mine. We can't feed and fertilize out here. We're relying on this beautiful place to provide what's necessary for these oysters to become what everybody loves. And the feedback loop is right there. We can see when it happens, whether it's, hey, is the water clean enough for them people to eat those oysters, or is the bay healthy enough for these shellfish to survive?
Climate change really changes the fiscal dynamic of doing business as an oyster farmer.
It's a business that you have to play the long game anyhow. You're not going to make quick money, so you're making these decisions that you hope pay off in 10 years from now. But as things are changing and the dynamic, it could definitely be a little nerve-wracking. We have a real-time monitoring system both here and in Humboldt Bay, where we look at ocean chemistry on a second-by-second basis to make sure we're not killing the larvae.
And that's new. Like
that's new. No, that's in the last decade. We've had some bad years. We probably lose 50% of what we plant here. Prior to mid-90s, we would get 70-80% through the market. And now we get
That's
less.
A substantial change.
Yeah, and we'd like to get back that 25% we're losing now. We just invested over $5 million up in Humboldt Bay for a hatchery so that we could breed animals that can handle this faster, because it's changing more rapidly than we even thought.
So you're having to change and rebreed a species that can handle the change in the ocean?
Sure, because what you're concerned about as a biologist is not absolute change, it's rate of change. And it's happening faster than we thought.
The soil and the water on Earth are intimately linked. And I think anybody who gets out for sport or works the land to provide the food that we eat has a professional relationship with the lands and waters, understands that intimately.
Dr. Nathan Wolfe is an ecophysiologist, associate professor of marine and environmental science, and associate director of the Fisheries, Aquatic Science, and Technology Laboratory at Alaska Pacific University. Basic translation, he studies the impact of environmental change on seafood species, human ecology, and health of the ocean.
It's not about absolute temperature, because the Earth has been hotter and the Earth has been cooler. It's about the rate at which the temperature is increasing as a result of anthropogenic inputs. Our influence on the greenhouse effect, from a physics standpoint, it's pretty simple. But the ramifications are huge and very, very complex. And so that rate is sufficiently fast that species can't, either through plasticity or through evolutionary mechanisms, they can't keep up with it.
And the other thing beyond the changes in chemistry is the storm patterns. You know, we have rainfall closures in this bay. And
Yes.
The way that usually works is this bay during the dry season is one of the cleanest in the lower 48. And when it rains, it gets closed to harvesting because the bacteria count comes up a little bit, and we're closed for 4 or 5 days and we get to reopen again. But when we have the big deluges, which is what we've been seeing these last few years, which again was predicted as being part of this climate change issue, it can wreak havoc, not only damaging gear, but then what we have to do is we have to test to reopen, and sometimes test multiple times. So instead of getting open 4 or 5 days after a rain, it can be weeks. You talk about ocean chemistry change, there will be some species that may benefit, and seaweeds are one of them. And again, this is a little bit late, so this stuff is deteriorating a little bit, but we did a few harvests this year of, this is essentially porphyra, which is nori. So this is naturally occurring on all of our gear.
So this is a byproduct.
This is a byproduct, something that we would, in the past, bring in and have to throw away because it was just all over everything. And so it took us a little while because there was some red tape with permitting to be able to actually harvest it. And we're drying this now, and we make a miso nori butter with it. Seaweeds are just so available as a great food source without impact. No matter what we do as humans, we have some impact. So our job is to try to have as little impact, negative impact, as we can. This is such an opportunity for us to produce another food product without essentially any impact at all. What do you think? Time to head back in?
Sure. I think what John and the folks at Hog Island Oyster have been able to do is incredible, right? Everything about what they're doing there is about keeping Tomales Bay healthy. They started as an oyster farm, which was not only cleaning out Tomales Bay, but also feeding people, but also they're looking at it from a bigger picture. John looks at this as a multi-generational thing. You know, he wants the next couple generations down the way to really be able to experience what Tomales Bay as an estuary and an ecosystem has to offer. And I think there's this really powerful intersection between food, climate change, and cycling. And that's, you know, we were kind of talking about that a little bit earlier today because you mountain bike.
Yeah.
Right? And it's soil and water.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have ocean water here, and then we think about rain and the soil on the ground and what happens to it, right? And I think we talk about a lot of those same things when you go out for a ride.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Definitely the condition, you know, what the conditions are, and you know what the weather's been like.
I feel like we're going backwards in our sourcing and our morals and ethics about how to treat the planet. Our fish-hungry mouths are just importing fish from wherever, caught however, by whomever, and we put it on a menu and we put a fancy sauce with it and we put it on Instagram and the public loves it.
Kenny Belov is a former line cook, commercial fisherman, restaurant owner, and founder of 2xSea Seafood Wholesaler, known for their commitment to sustainability, transparency, and locally sourced seafood.
10 years ago, I had so many chefs that demanded accountability from me. They wanted me to prove that this fish came from this source. Now no one gives a damn. And that's why when you go up and down this pier, you see styrofoam boxes with fish being shipped in from God knows where, being misidentified from a storytelling point of view, right? It's caught by a small fisherman out of the Philippines. How do you know that? Really? It came off the auction block is where that fish came from. You look at so many menus and there's not a single fish, not only not from California, but not even domestic, right? The amount of seafood we are importing is it's just obscene. Think about a anchovy that's caught in Peru, then taken to a plant to produce fish oil and fish meal. Then that pellet is shipped to Scotland to farm a fish. Then that fish is shipped to San Francisco to go on a menu. That fish took a vacation of a lifetime. Why is that necessary?
Because it's the same thing with produce, right? It's because it's people's need or demand to have what they want all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Buying local, buying seasonal with seafood is just as important as buying local and seasonal with vegetables. Because really, truly, what is local and seasonal is always going to be fresh, and it's going to have a lower impact on the environment as a whole. The seasonality of fish is gone.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, we had defined seafood seasons, just like produce, right? Crab season, salmon season, halibut season. And I remember people would say, well, everybody in the city has the same stuff on the menu because it was in season.
Yep. We should be in the middle of salmon season. There should be a line of boats ready to get under this hoist for us to offload them. Not this year, not last year, hopefully next year. And I'm not the most popular tool in the shed when I say these things, but our salmon fishery in California is a man-made fishery now. But the ocean abundance of salmon right now is pretty amazing. There's a lot of fish out there. They're all hatchery fish. Our rivers cannot sustain healthy salmon runs because we've dammed all our rivers. Extremely warm water, years of drought, right? Those salmon have no chance to make it on those rivers.
Really, when you're getting into that compounding interwovenness of climate dynamics with earth dynamics, like the story that everything shares, it's one of soil and water.
Dylan Oslinger is a soil specialist, trail builder, mountain biker, Protect Our Winters Alliance member, geomorphologist with degrees in geology, snow science, and a master's in earth science. Basic translation, he sees the effects of climate change on the planet's soil.
I know dirt real well. Soil is lessening across the state as we move it through human means and we move it through climate impacts. We were just flooding the soil out into the estuaries, out into San Francisco Bay, out into the ocean.
That's like tons of nutrient-rich, dense soil being blasted out with water that is then washed into the bay.
Yes.
That's not ending up where it's supposed to be.
Exactly. You know, you think about why people blame our loss of steelhead and of fisheries in California. It's not just dams. It's not just lesser water flows. Or that nutrients disappears. That all impacts fisheries.
If there's no salmon, what are those fishermen and fisher people who have salmon licenses going to fish?
So we're waiting for Tony Largo right now, who's a commercial salmon captain. He has a commercial salmon vessel. He'll be pulling up in a few minutes, hopefully, with local halibut. Said if salmon season was open, these halibut would not be caught. He would be out there fishing salmon, 100%, guaranteed.
So you normally fish salmon?
We normally fish salmon, but unfortunately it's been closed for the last 3 years. Some guys are having to move on, sell their boats and sell their permits.
Wow. Once halibut's done for you, what do you transition to after that?
We do crab.
You do crab.
Crab in the winter.
When crab season opens?
When crab season opens, which used to be November, but now we're usually starting in the new year.
So you go from a fish that has been pulled off the fishing list to now a fish that is being, I don't want to say overfished.
Sure.
But the fish are smaller.
100%.
Some of the halibut sizes that we're seeing now, you can treat it and roast it like a whole turbo. They're
100%.
so small. So by closing one, you're seeing another one being pretty much walloped on because they need to pay their mortgage on their boats.
100%. And the powers that be that close the salmon season aren't thinking about the halibut. So we shut down an entire industry to try to save something that can't be saved unless we fix our rivers, and no one's intending on fixing the rivers.
There's a tremendous feedback loop between us and the marine environment. How we interact with our environment has a direct impact on how fish can sustain themselves as species. And what we're seeing as we influence global temperatures is oceanic temperatures going up, particularly at the polar areas. And so some of the ways that this can play out in terms of the fish we eat are in species distribution shifts, for example. Some species that have a physiological preference for cooler temperatures are shifting northwards. They're out of the grounds where we typically would go and find them.
I asked Kenny which local fish populations have been the most affected by changing water temperatures.
I guess albacore, just because that we haven't seen it in so many years. Albacore tuna was a
Season was big.
Santa Cruz South fishery, right? The further south you went, the more there were. The albacore swim where the cold water meets the warm water. They swim on the warm water side and they feed on the cold water side. That temperature break no longer comes close enough to us here. They're out there, right? But there's no boat that can reach them. So if you go, the further up the coast you go, the closer that temp break is to shore. Now the southern reach of albacore is possibly Fort Bragg, but really it's Washington and Oregon State.
How many mile shift is that?
Over 1,000.
I remember that being one of the fun, the phone calls you would be like, Chris, albacore's banging right now.
Yep.
It's menu time.
Yep, not anymore.
Gone.
It's on a truck from Washington.
The fisheries are changing. And so we are seeing in some specialized fisheries conversion to a new fishery, as you said, people are doing in the Bay Area, but not everybody can do that. So some fisheries are just shrinking. There are closures, and where there aren't closures, things are just starting to take more effort potentially to acquire those species. And effort equals money. That can go so far, but eventually we're going to have to rethink our relationship with seafoods. We're in the middle of a very important time to keep our eyes open to understand what's happening to these fisheries. And we're still in a place where we have a couple of moves we can make towards sustainability. And one of the biggest ones is exposing people to different seafoods and showing them how delicious they can be and how approachable they can be.
For a lot of folks, they feel it's all gloom and doom.
It's interesting. We talk about that not to be, all gloom and doom or chicken little about this, but it is serious. But at the same time, I think people more and more want to know about their food and where their food is coming from. And when people start asking questions around that, it gives you the opportunity to talk about what challenges we're facing. There's fish you're going to find on our menus, and there's fish you're not going to find on our menus because of either how it's farmed or fished or where it's coming from. When you tell people that story, they kind of go, oh, what's my opportunity? What's my opportunity to buy local? What's my opportunity to look into how this food is produced? And that's the hope.
I depend on taking things out of the ocean and selling them to people. If I don't do it with a moral compass in mind, I'm just killing my own future. As a fishmonger, I try to guide my chefs on the truth and the honesty, but I believe that the word no is so powerful as long as no comes with an explanation. Hey, do you have petrale sole on the menu today? No, we don't. We don't support dragfish, and right now, that's the only way petrale sole is called right now. But I hear you, customer, and I love you, and I'm gonna make you happy with this other fish that's in season, that's caught the right way, that's good for you and good for the environment. It's not complicated. It just takes a little bit more effort.
Are you optimistic about the way things are going?
What day is it? I don't think of it in terms of hopeful or not as a species. We have to figure out some way to manage this. We've not been doing a very progressive job of it thus far. But eventually we won't be able to turn away from it. It can be scary to think about. The bravest thing we can do right now is face all that head on. I really think what will make me the most hopeful is to see local people, everyday people like you and I, making little changes to make our lives better that add up to make our impact on the world less severe. And that gives me hope.
I'd like to give a shout out to Protect Our Winters and Athletic Brewing for all their support and commitment to this project. Make sure you subscribe and like, share with your friends, and look for the next upcoming film. Buy local, buy smart. Thank you.